Welcome to another edition of Basagan ng Trip. I'm Leloy Claudio, your host. I teach history at De La Salle University. Ngayon, last week, specifically September 23 last week, nung Sabado, was the 45th anniversary of the Declaration of Martial Law. Tama po yung aking kaibigan ni si Manolo Quezon, hindi po 21 ang real anniversary ng martial law, kundi 23. So I know I already talked about Marcos in the last episode, but in this episode, I want to talk specifically about martial law. In particular, gusto ko sagutin yung tanong, kinailangan ba talagang ideklara ni President Marcos ang martial law para supuin ang mga komunista sa Pilipinas? Napaka-importanting tanong nito dahil karamihan ng mga pro-Marcos historian at saka mga Marcos sympathizer, sinasabi nila that Marcos had no choice but to declare martial law. So let's investigate this question. Ngayon, para sagutin itong tanong na to, maraming ibang tanong na kailangan sagutin muna. Unang-una, ano ba talaga ang komunismo? At sino ba talaga ang mga komunista? Well, I like to make a distinction between capital C communism and lowercase communism. Yung lowercase communism ay yung general philosophy of communism which states that to each according to his need, from each according to his ability. So kung marami kang kayang ibigay, ibigay mo yun. Kung marami kang kailangan, kunin mo yun, pero hindi ka dapat lalabis doon. That's a kind of philosophical communism. Now, yung capital C communism is a very specific form of communism that emerged after the Russian Revolution in the early 20th century in Russia. At ito yung komunismo na naniniwala na ma-achieve mo yung pagkakapantay-pantay sa lipunan sa pamamagitan ng isang partido, yung tinatawag na vanguard party na pamumunuan ang revolusyon. Itong partido na to will be composed of professional revolutionaries and itong partido na to will be always correct. In other words, sila yung partido yung nakakaalam kung ano yung tama sa lipunan at kung ano yung hindi. At pag sinabi kong komunismo dito sa aking mini lecture na to, I will be referring to this capital C kind of communism, this Leninist communism that emerged from Russia and would be replicated by other capital C communist parties like the Communist Party of the Philippines. So nabanggit ko, yung Communist Party of the Philippines, sino nga ba sila? Which is the next question. What is the Communist Party of the Philippines? What is the NPA? What is the NDF? We've had two communist parties sa Pilipinas. Yung unang-una, yung Partido Komunista ng Pilipinas na largely pinamunuan yung Huk Rebellion nung late 1940s until the 1950s, early 1960s. At yung pangalawang communist party naman ngayon ay yung Communist Party of the Philippines na tumiwalag galing dun sa original Communist Party at ngayon ay naging yung pinakamalaking Communist Party sa Pilipinas, running one of the longest standing revolutions in the world. At ang pinagkaiba nitong dalawang partido na ito ay yung unang partido ay mas oriented yung kanilang komunismo sa Russia. They took inspiration from Stalin, they took inspiration from Lenin. Ito namang bagong Communist Party, while they also take inspiration from Lenin and Stalin, they also take inspiration from the communism of China. Yung komunismo ni Mao Zedong na mas malaki ang focus sa pisante kumpara sa focus ng original communism. But in any case, they are still a communist party in that they believe in the primacy of a revolutionary vanguard party. Ngayon, itong Communist Party of the Philippines, marami siyang mga components. Pag nagne-negotiate ito, ang ginagamit niyang component, yung tinatawag nating National Democratic Front or NDF, kaya makikita niyo minsan, there are government negotiations, GRP, Government of the Republic of the Philippines, with the NDF or National Democratic Front. Ang army naman itong CPP na to ay yung tinatawag nating NPA or yung New People's Army. Yung next question na kailangan natin sagutin ay yung medyo mas controversial na question. Ano naman yung mga National Democratic Organizations? Ang mga National Democratic Organizations ay ito yung mga kinikilala natin mga kaliwaing organisasyon, kagaya sa women's group, yung Gabriela or yung Bayan Muna. Ngayon tinatawag natin silang parte ng Makabayan Bloc sa Kongreso. Ang controversial dito ay ano ba talaga ang kinalaman nito sa Communist Party of the Philippines? Ngayon nilinawin ko, hindi lahat ng miyembro ng mga tinatawag na National Democratic Organizations ay komunista. Pero mali din naman sabihin na walang kinalaman na itong mga ito sa Communist Party of the Philippines kasi karamihan ng mga National Democratic Organizations ay pinamumunuan ng mga people who are communist, part of the communist underground, pero ang kanilang legal identity ay miyembro ng isang National Democratic Organization. Kaya kahit sabihin natin, technically, hindi communist groups ang mga National Democratic Organizations, matatawag natin silang, una, recruitment ground for communists, at pangalawa, matatawag natin silang allied organizations of the Communist Party dahil kadalasan kung ano yung stance ng partido ay umaakyat din bilang stance nitong mga legal organizations na to. Just a disclaimer, It should be noted, however, that just because these are legal organizations that are associated or allied with the Communist Party, hindi dapat sila tina-target ng military for human rights violations. Nevertheless, it should be clear that there is a connection between organizations like the Makabayan Bloc and the Communist Party of the Philippines. Okay, now that we know then kung ano ang CPP, NPA, NDF, ano ang National Democratic Organizations, pwede na nating itanong yung tanong, how big a problem was communism when Marcos declared martial law in 1972? Well, I am in disagreement with some of my fellow historians na makadilaw who say that the Communist Party was not really a threat at that time. Unang-una, it was very clear nung panahon na yon na nakakuha na ng armaments from China ang Communist Party. Ang evidence ito, nung 1971, nagkaroon ng shipment of arms from China papuntang Pilipinas. Ito yung MV Karagatan shipment. Pangalawa, increasing na ang violence ng Communist Party. So in essence, ang alam natin is that the CPP is yung underground, some would say illegal organization, although the legalities are difficult. And then yung National Democratic Organizations ay yung legal above ground manifestation nitong movement na to. Now that we know those particular facts, we can ask the question, delikado ba talaga ang komunismo nung panahon ni Marcos? Ngayon, ang sasabihin ko dito is that I disagree with some historians who reduce the threat of communism during that time. Unang-una, I am an anti-communist historian in the sense that I believe na yung formula ng Leninist Party na dapat laging nasusunod yung centralized party is a recipe for dictatorship. In fact, sinabi ng isang former leading communist himself na si Nathan Kimpo na sa tingin niya, kung nanalo sila bilang Communist Party, the kind of regime they would have created would have been a totalitarian regime much worse than Marcos. Ito galing na ito from a former communist himself. Now, so it was a threat, and I think that if you did have a communist takeover over the Philippines, maraming papatayin, kagaya ng mga pinatay ni Lenin at mga pinatay ni Stalin at mga pinatay ni Mao. But how big was the threat? To some extent, it was increasingly dangerous. Kasi noong 1971, nagkaroon ng bombing sa Plaza Miranda at napagtanto ng ilang mga tao or pinagsuspecha ng ilang mga tao na komunista ang nagbomba ng Plaza Miranda. In fact, ito ang allegation ni Victor Corpus, isang former communist dun sa kanyang libro. But pangalawa, noong 1972, it became very clear na lumalaki na ang mga armas ng Communist Party of the Philippines. Kasi noong 1972, nagkaroon ng shipment of arms from China in a boat called MV Karagatan at nahuli ito ni Marcos. So there was, in a sense, a growing threat. But it should be noted also that this growing threat was still manageable at that time. Because as I said in the previous episode, 2,000 lang naman yung troops ng NPA at that time. Moreover, even if it is true na may mga politiko nang tumutulong sa CPP-NPA at that time, in particular si Ninoy Aquino and certain segments of the Liberal Party, not all segments of the Liberal Party, this was very isolated in the central Luzon area. So pwede na nating itanong ngayon, tama ba na tugon sa komunista ang martial law? I said that it was relatively isolated at that time, but I think the criteria we need to use rather, para itanong kung tama ba ang pag-implement ng martial law is proportionality. Ngayon, problema ito pero proportional ba yung response? It should be noted na napatahimik na ang countryside communism noong panahon ni Magsaysay. In fact, napahupa ang Huk Rebellion ng panahon na yun without having to implement martial law. And in fact, if Marcos simply drew from that model, you could have engaged in countryside development in order to temper the communist movement. Moreover, ito yung gusto kong sabihin. Hindi siya proportional because napaka-violent ng response ni Marcos. Because ang ginawa niya, sinentralize niya yung power sa military. Sinabi niya, gawin niyo yung kailangan niyong gustong gawin. At dahil doon, maraming na-torture, maraming namatay, maraming illegally na-detain so that na-corrupt yung buong military establishment simply because they said Marcos was fighting the communists. The other criteria we need to use kung tama ba yung response ng martial law is to look at the intentions of Marcos himself. Ngayon, mahirap basahin ang isip ni Apo. But if you look at the CIA documents from this period, sinasabi nila walang naniniwala na ini-implement ni Marcos ang martial law dahil sa mga komunista. They thought that he was going to implement martial law dahil mag-expire na yung kanyang second term at hindi na siya makaka-stay in power. And Marcos wanted to stay in power. And how can we prove that Marcos wanted to stay in power? Well, he did stay in power until he was forcibly removed in 1986. So, kung US ang itatanong mo, na praning din naman tungkol sa komunista ang mga Amerikano, it's very clear that Marcos wanted to implement martial law primarily because he wanted to create a dictatorial government with him in the center. So ang final question, ano ang naging epekto ng martial law sa communist movement? Lagi sinasabi, we judge something based on its fruits. So ano ba talaga yung nangyari? That's the best way to judge Marcos's policy. Well, from a group of 2,000, lumobo ang communist movement to around 24,000 troops. And the reason for this was because the logic of the Communist Party was join us in order to fight a dictatorship. At dahil nga may martial law, tama sila, there was a dictatorship, so sumali yung mga tao dun sa communist movement. Ako mismo, meron akong mga magulang na sumali sa Communist Party nitong panahon na to, at kung tanungin mo sila bakit sila sumali, sasabihin nila sa iyo, dahil naging diktador si Marcos. Kung mag-interview ka ng pagkarami-raming former communist at ex-communist, bakit sila sumali sa Communist Party? Ang sasabihin nila sa inyo, dahil diktador si Marcos. We can look at this through the microcosm, for example, of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Noong 1972, maraming National Democratic activists sa UP Diliman noong 1972, at nagkalat nga yung mga aktivista doon at kinukundi na nga nila ang rehimen ni Marcos. Subalit, hindi pa sila humahawak ng mga baril. Pagkatapos ng 1972, according to the research of Patricio Abenales, marami sa kanilang nag-underground at humawak na ng baril dahil they were forced underground by the declaration of martial law. So now you can see why the CPP-NPA grew during the Marcos period and why Marcos was called the greatest or the #1 recruiter of the Communist Party of the Philippines. Now, by 1986, according to my research, it was very clear that the communists were willing to take power already, or ready to take power. Hindi ko pwedeng sabihin sa inyo kung sino, pero meron ako na-interview na very high-ranking communist, at ang sinabi niya sa akin na ang plano nila was that by 1986, they were going to take the government through Baguio. Baguio has 4 entrances. At every summer, nasa Baguio, ang presidente ng Pilipinas, maraming mga kongresista, at halos ang buong Korte Suprema ng Pilipinas. So ang balak nilang gawin, pag nandun yung lahat ng government officials, isisil nila yung 4 entrances ng Baguio, choke the government, and then ask for a revolutionary government. So it was very, very possible in the late 1980s na mag-take over ang communists. And if you look at the CIA and the American files from this period, sa kanila lang sinasabi na totoo, real threat na ang CPP-NPA. So, compared to yung 1972 na meron naman talaga mga komunista, at 1986 na napakalaki na at handa ng sakupin ng Communist Party at ng NPA ang Baguio, pari nating itanong, when was the threat more real? Before Marcos's martial law or after Marcos's martial law? I think the answer is very clear that Marcos did not prevent the growth of the Communist Party and the NPA. In fact, nilagay niya tayo sa isang posisyon na malapit na mag-civil war ang ating bansa. So ano yung trip na gusto kong basagin this week? Yung trip na gusto kong basagin ay yung myth na sinasabi ng mga pro-Marcos na kinailangan ideklara ang martial law para mawala ang mga komunista. Anong mali dito? Ang mali dito is it's essentially fighting one wrong with another wrong. Ano ang problema ko with communism? Ang problema ko with capital C communism is it prioritizes the interests and the privilege of a single party over the interests of other people. Sinasabi niya, laging tama yung partido, ito lagi ang dapat masunod. That to me is a form of dictatorship. So how do you respond to a form of dictatorship? The pro-Marcos think that the way to do it is to respond through another form of dictatorship, like martial law. But two wrongs don't make a right. In fact, kailan ba bumaba ang number ng mga NPA at mga CPP sa Pilipinas? After the restoration of democracy, dahil napagtanto nila that democracy returned a lot of the freedoms and the privileges that they were looking for to begin with. They didn't need a violent communist party to get there. So, at the end of the day, kaya ba nating solusyonan ang isang dictatorial movement with another dictatorial movement? Hindi ba i-compound mo lang ang problema pag ginawa mo ito at mas lalong liliyab yung root causes ng problema? Maraming salamat po.